There we go.
So what you'll have is set up.
Oh, yeah.
We're pretty good on battery. So what you can do is like just. Yep, that's good. That's good. No, it's pretty long cable. You just do this, and then the guys can see you as well when you're talking. You're on the screen. Camera looks like. Camera looks like. Oh yeah. So when you're talking like this, yeah, it comes up. Perfect. All right, cool. All right. Big cash.
All right. Yeah, thanks, man. Yes. When is it size? It's like it's doing something. Some of the guys kind of get used to
All right, we're getting started in about 5 minutes, guys. 5 minutes. Anyone in the lobby? Oh, yes. Admit all. All right, there we go.
Yeah.
Thanks, brother. All right, Brendan's going to talk about the Australia project in 5 minutes.
Yeah. Yeah.
Not just about Australia. This is a science fiction novel.
Mm-hmm.
And then because I'm doing this, I've got some sort of elements of this part is real. This really happens.
All right. Yeah, start. Make sure there's no one else waiting up. Oh, there we go. Admit all. Admit. Cool. I think we're good. I know, that's all right.
Just make sure I get the right
All right. Welcome, everyone, to another weekly Transhumanism Sydney meetup. Today we have Brendan Clarke. Give me a round of applause for Brendan Clarke. He's going to be talking about the Australia project. Yeah, it's going to be a tale of AI, automation, utopias, dystopias, and brain-computer interfaces. Right. Well, Brendan. Mouse there as well.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I'm right here. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. All right. G'day, everyone. Yeah. So basically, this is a presentation I gave back in 2019, October 19, 2019. And of course, the world moved on a bit, quite rapidly. And so I thought it's a good time now. We've got some new people in transhumanism. We've got people around the world. And maybe they wouldn't have heard of this one. So it was written in 2003, so it's a little bit before Ray Kurzweil brought his book out. And so this is a really good segue into explaining what transhumanism is, maybe what accelerating technology is, because it literally explains what a post-singularity event could potentially look like and how you could actually direct your, I suppose, your future into one of dystopia, or you could choose to modify your view of the way that technology society works and move into a utopia, which becomes the Australia project, which, of course, we live in Australia, so that's really cool. All right. Okay, so basically here you've got pretty much here, a guy called Marshall Brain wrote that. He's the author of How Things Work, and he's written a number of books and things. This one literally was a short story, basically 8 chapters, very, very easy to digest. And I like to use this, and every time I meet someone new to transhumanism, to give them this book, because a lot of people don't want to read large novels and things like that. But 8 chapters, very, very short, very easy language to understand, gives you a quick overview about what transhumanism is and how we can actually use that to direct our future, right? And so the reason I pretty much basically said why I chose the topic of this book, because it's easy, right? It's easy to talk to, it's easy to ingest, and easy for people to understand who are new to the topics, okay? So basically the story of Manna just poses the question, if basically half or more than half of all jobs are replaced by automation, what do you do with the other half of the population, right? And that's the thing that we have to, as a society, think about before we get to this AGI, which the most optimistic scenario I've heard so far is in the next year and potentially 3 years, right? So Ray Kurzweil still thinks 2029, but other people are still saying that the disruption will start happening within 3 years. So we've got to start thinking about this sort of now, all right? I pretty much said, yeah, possibility the 2 outcomes, dystopian future full of misery. That's basically a capitalist future where basically large corporations capture the AI means of production. Everyone else gets replaced by what they call a useless class. You have no value because you're out of a job. Or the Australia project, which is the alternate solution, which is I'd say potential utopia, because some people will not like it, but it's where we use technology for the betterment of people. We introduce things like UBI, some sort of replacement of resource credits, and we use technology for the betterment of everybody, right? So the topics we're going to talk about today are basically the technologies that are used in the Manna story, which basically encompasses things like brain-computer interfaces, AGI, resource credits, UBI, and the possibility, is it something we can actually do? Because remember, it was a story back in 2003. And how has this vision changed since the book is written and since I last gave the presentation? And is this the future actually worth fighting for? Okay. All right. So what is Manna? So Manna is just a short term for managerial system. So in the story, they used Manna was the first AI system that replaced the positions of managers. Didn't replace the low-end workers or anything like that, replaced managers. And so they set the story in a fast food restaurant where, similar to McDonald's, where you got little headset, except the AI here actually just whispers into their ears and tells them everything they do, it micromanages them. And this is all cool, everyone's happy with it, and nothing much changes, right? But it gets better, right? And as it gets better, it gets more features. And those features it becomes hiring decisions, firing decisions, etc. like that. So that's where you start looking at that dystopian aspect, right? So it uses voice synthesis, etc. So pretty much all these technologies exist now, which is a little bit scary. Back in 2003, not so much. And it ends up running most of the companies. Now, the problem with this issue of running automation, as you saw with Robodebt, if you don't have the humans in the loop, the computers then talk to other computers. So once you get fired from a job or you resign or whatever it is, the computer then says that you are unhireable. and other computers won't hire you because you are not hireable at that stuff. So you get this whole automation process where once you lose your job, you're done, right? All right. So in the story, which is probably what's going to happen here, everyone becomes a low-skilled worker. So even though you got skills, effectively from a corporation's point of view, you're low skilled because the AI is doing everything. Even if you're working, you don't need much skills to actually use an AI, and you're easily replaceable. So, and then in this story, people become like robots because the AI manages the people and turns them into automatons, basically like slaves. And I pretty much said that it flags you once you lose your job, you become unemployable. The system knows every single employee, they know your whole history, and if you, it becomes in this way a knower of everything about you, and then it controls every facet of your employment. And so it creates essentially what we've got today, but worse, a two-class society, rich, poor. However, in the new society, once you've got these automation systems that are taking place, you don't have a hope of ever getting a job once you lose it. You're replaced. So I suppose from today's aspect, everyone believes that these new technologies will always create more jobs than it replaces. That's not true anymore. It's in some industries, new technology creates more jobs, but in other industries, it actually replaces more jobs than it creates. All right. Concentrates wealth to the elites. That's always the age-old problem, and it creates a useless, unemployable class, which is no use to society. So in other words, once you're replaced by automation, you have no function, right? Which is very, very sad. All right. And then, of course, on the other side, we've got the utopian aspect, okay? So automation is used as what we talk about here in transhumanism and everywhere else is automation is used to create an abundance, right? We eliminate scarcity. Everything is free and equally accessible through a system of resource credits. That's your UBI. And the credits are used to control actual resources that you use. And it's autonomous. And so when you ask something like Amazon, you order something on Amazon, the robots deliver it, they give it to you. Once you use it and you don't want it anymore, you recycle it. So no wasted resources and things like that. People are connected to this sophisticated brain-computer interface. They call it VeriBrain, but similar to like your Neuralink or Neuralase. And people are free to do anything they want, pretty much, right? Because you are paid to live, right? That's where your resource credits. You're not paid to do something. So, of course, what do people do when they've got nothing to do? They do what they want to do. Some of that's productive, some of that's not productive, but you don't really care because overall, most people want to be of value to society, but they want to do what they want to do, right? So that's a good thing. Now, this is the principles of this Manna, which is like the sort of the utopia, which is sort of equivalent to what the heuristic imperatives of J.B. Shapiro is trying to build into AI, right? So everybody's equal. Everything is reused, say sustainability, the United Nations sustainability goals, things like that. Nothing is anonymous. This is where I say it's the concerning aspect, why I say potential utopia. To have a perfect society, you need to know what's going on in the society. The AI has to know, so you don't have privacy. You don't own anything, right? Because the whole idea of ownership basically ties up resources. So the idea is once you die, your stuff is gone. It recycles. So you don't have this inherited idea of rich people giving stuff to other rich people and carrying that on. And then, of course, locking up that forever away from everyone else. Lying is bad. Okay, we all agree with that. Do no harm, obey the rules. The other concerning part, because to make a utopia, you have to have not much disagreement or limitations to disagreement. Now, why I say it's potential utopia is in the book, they actually use this brain-computer interface. So if you want to go murder people, the brain-computer interface will actually step in and stop you from doing that, right? So that's why, people will be concerned about putting chips in their head, what sort of control that has. Live your life. This is a very good one. So you have value as a human because you're alive, okay? And therefore you can do whatever you want with it. This is a fundamental freedom. Better and better is an interesting term where they actually encourage you in this society to actually always improve it. even though AIs can do everything, you need to educate yourself. You need to always go for self-improvement. You need to go improve society. That's the fundamental goal. Of course, you don't have to do that, but they encourage it. And that's what we should be doing now, right? You know, everyone should always be encouraged to do better than they are. Yeah, so they want to create a culture of constantly looking. So in this future utopia, the idea is that there's always a question with utopias: how do we make ourselves better? And the answer is similar to the Star Trek universe. We always want to make a better version of ourselves. So that's constant. That's ingrained into the society. All right, to always improve. They have two features of this, and they call them Vites and Ps in this one. But Vites are basically people with brain-computer interfaces. You pretty much live in the virtual world, like in VR chat, but in your head. And some of them would go to the transhumanist route of replacing their bodies into living purely in the digital world. And you get the Ps, which is like the ordinary people who don't want to be augmented, right? They literally just live their lives in the here and now, and they basically use an accessory like having a mobile phone, right? And some of the technologies that we use, back in 2016, Google invented Google Duplex, which is really cool. For 2016, but still used, right? Still alive. So basically, this was a cool technology that actually allowed you to have natural conversations with an AI, and it would actually do things like book appointments for you. So you put in your app and say, I need to book a holiday. And in the United States, not so much in Australia, but in the United States, it would actually go and call the booking company and make the appointment for you using human voices, talking to humans, which is cool, right? It still exists using TensorFlow, but no one really talks about it anymore. All right. UBI, Universal Basic Income. This is a little bit controversial, although recently they started talking about it again. How do you fund the UBI, right? And there's many different ways of doing it, right? But one thing you do is you can replace welfare, right? So if you've got multiple welfare systems, like you've got Austudy, AbStudy, you've got pensions, you've got a whole bunch of unemployment benefits, you just replace them all with one payment. So you basically strip out all the administrative staff, you strip out all the enforcement part of it, and then you replace it with one payment, right? Which could save money. So we, as a back of the envelope calculation, Peter and I did calculations back then, and we said, what would it take to just give $6,000 to pretty much to everyone in Australia, all right? Just on top of your minimum thing. So this way, everyone, irrespective, working or not working, just gets $6,100 a year, right?
And how much was it?
$360 billion a year, right? But we actually, that actually 360 billion was actually not that figure. It was, I think, equivalent to the age pension back in 2019. So it's about $18,000. Yeah.
So let someone in the meet.
Yeah.
No,
Yeah, they were good.
No, $6,000 was a back end calculation to replace certain payments, right? And then that was non-health payments, right?
Yeah.
And then the whole idea was, we then said, well, what would be the minimum amount of payment? So we took the pension,
yeah,
and we said that's a good figure because there's multiple things like that. And we said that's your base level, right? Because if your unemployment or your pension, right, ultimately this needs to be a lower figure.
Yeah.
What that is, and then everyone can get that.
So 360 billion a year,
Yeah,
is less than the submarines.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Which of course,
With a 20% surplus as well.
yes, that's right. So just
How much does it cost to administer the benefits?
That's a good.
I don't know that answer.
You need that for the next time you give the talk.
Correct, yeah.
Because,
No,
I mean, those people will lose their jobs, but at the same time, their costs would then be taken off.
Correct. So one thing that people say we can't afford stuff like this is they calculated to actually give Centrelink payments an extra $40 a fortnight, I think it was, just to take them above the poverty level back. I think it was in 2016 when they calculated this. And they said, we can't pay for it because the Liberals are in power, right? Oh, we can't pay for it, it's too expensive. Anyway, when you actually look at the figures to actually do that, it actually makes Australia an extra 1.5 billion on top of the cost of funding.
This is all the economic.
Correct.
What do you call it? Like you give people money, you get the.
Yeah, GDP.
No, it's the multiplier.
Economic multiplier, yeah.
I can't remember.
Yeah, I can't remember the term. Yeah, but that's the one. That's the one. Yeah, and they actually released the actual figures of that. They later on, the Australian Business Council actually did some talks about actually increasing it. So, so we could fund it, right? But of course, maybe if people don't want to because they think it's going to disrupt everything, we could do much better and still not cost the country. We'd actually make money. We're better off, right? By funding, even if we don't fund the whole UBI, at least bring up the safety net and bring up all the levels, right? Like pensioners at the moment don't have enough money to fund, pay for medicines and things like that, right? So we could bring those up to a livable area, right? And then it wouldn't cost us much money because we'd actually make the money back and we get better returns on things like healthcare and things like that. Because healthcare costs a lot of money, and if people are healthy, then we don't spend as much money on that sort of stuff, right? So at the moment, we're trying to get people, especially men, to go to doctors, right? And because men are very stubborn and stupid, and they get sick, they go, oh, no, it should be okay. So they run a very education program to try to get men to visit doctors, of course. And that was good. And then men started going to the doctors, and then the Liberals decided that they'd cut the funding to all the doctors and start making the tests very expensive. So, of course, then people stop going to the doctors. And, of course, they then go to emergency.
So you did preventative stuff?
Absolutely.
Performance status if your cholesterol is fit, right?
Correct. There's lots of things you can do, right?
The extra UBI
Yeah.
payout.
Oh, absolutely, right? So there's lots of things we can do. The issue is we have to think different, right? The first thing we have to say is like, we can't afford it. That's what everyone says. It's too expensive. Well, apparently we can afford $450 billion in station tax cuts, and another 450, but potentially more, 500. I think the latest figure is 500 on the especially submarines, right? So we can afford it. It's just that we don't want to, right? Yeah.
It's a trillion going spend.
Yeah.
I don't even want to go near.
No.
It's just money for Americans.
It really is.
Yeah, exactly. And imagine if we actually built some of this stuff and we actually spent money in this and made everyone happy, there'd be less reason to go to war, right? Because
War makes a lot of money
war does
for some people.
for shareholders, for certain shareholders, right?
Yeah.
But we can make more money. Well, they actually don't need money if you go to the utopia, I expect. But
So then what's the lobby like? So if you think about this lobby that gets the money for the submarines, right? Because they lobby, and then they get the deal on the submarines, and then they get a payout, which is the return on investment for the lobbying that they do. So then who's doing the lobbying for this?
well, we are, and we don't count.
International UBI organisations can't be called.
Yeah. What we need is a organisation that has lots of clout, that wants to pursue these things. Then they'd have the money and the lobbying
There
funds.
needs to be an economic incentive or something.
Of course. You could do that with well, one of the things I thought about is superannuation. You just need a superannuation corporation that does transhumanist stuff, and that would make money and that would make share. And they say, look, we're going to put it on public, and it's got to be there. And then you could use that as a lobbying effort for all the things you want, because it's got their money then.
What about like health insurance lobbying? You can somehow show that I take money.
I would get rid of health insurance.
No. He's saying using them.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
You need people with money and influence
Yeah.
to push policy, right?
I don't think you need health insurance. We need to get rid of health insurance.
No, but
He's talking about that as a resource to lobby to make this happen.
If you
And
could
then get rid
convince
of
them.
afterwards.
If you
otherwise
could,
it's like, oh, this isn't what they do anymore.
yeah. No, you're right. And this is the challenge. This is the challenge. How to all.
If you have mass problems,
Yeah.
then a government, and the government's going to be quite under, it's going to be very difficult government because by that time there are going to be certain tech companies that actually already are, but are going to be extraordinarily powerful.
That's right.
We're talking about geometric scale here. So in order to try and stabilize society, I don't really think UBI is in any way contentious. Not at the moment, obviously not at the moment, but the question for me would be actually, is it any different from social welfare? Because at some point, where is the concentration of power supposed to be? I've never known a human existence that didn't have some type of hierarchy. It seems to be embedded within human, certainly male psychology.
Just in our culture.
Forget about the lobbies. You won't need the lobbies because you'll have massive job losses, and that's going to be really scary. And the governments are more than aware.
But we had that in 2020, and what did they do? They doubled welfare. They literally doubled it, and nobody screamed for the hills. Nobody, came out with the burning torches. It was totally fine. They did it because if everyone had been forced onto normal welfare, then there would have been the torches and the hills.
Exactly, yeah.
So they know it's gone,
But then
and they know how to
now
fix
we've
it.
got the sugar hit that we're working through in regard. I
Which
still
would
trying to
happen
work
with this
out
as well.
what's going to happen in like 3, 5, 6 years. Is it going to be stagnation or is it going to be deflation? Anyway, I'm not putting myself.
the only-
I just can't quite picture it yet.
No,
The only counterpoint though is like you say, well, if the social stability, they'll give you benefits. But not if it's built like a robot arm will just kill you.
Which is the other half of the story.
That's right.
Apply it to the way that it can actually provide.
You've got so much surveillance now. I've just come back into the society after cleaning it out because of things, stuff outside during the pandemic. And I can't believe the level of surveillance now, and no one seems to be having any concerns about it.
There are
And
lots of
then you
people.
have all of this.
Oh no,
It's
okay.
not
So
that hard.
you don't hear about the concerns, right?
Okay.
But there's lots of concerns, right?
Oh, well, okay.
Yeah.
There's
So
international organisations that are lovely, like Privacy International,
Yeah.
Digital Rights Watch, and all sorts of organisations.
Oh,
are on
okay,
this.
let's talk to you later then. 'Cause
Yeah.
I'm concerned. 'Cause I think it's a
No,
different-
Unfortunately, they don't manage the media, which is
Okay,
correct.
sure,
agglomerated.
yeah, you're right.
yeah. So we actually like because we're part was part of the science party and the fashion party politician stuff, right?
Oh, okay.
And we wrote a letter and submissions into the thing about the things like metadata retention, the Intercept and Disrupt Act,
Yeah.
right? A whole bunch of other surveillance networks, right? And the government got all the submissions and they were overwhelmingly negative, as in like this is a terrible idea. And the government went, "Thank you very much. We'll just do it anyway." Right? And both sides of Parliament, like I'm more of a Labor leaning voter, but Labor went, "Yeah, okay, we'll have some of that," right? Because the Liberals voted for it, therefore the Labor has to vote for it, right? Because they'll never vote against the security measures that Liberals always introduce. Even though they'll say it's a really bad idea, they'll still vote for it, right?
So far.
So far, every single time, right? And that surveillance network is very scary, and it will be even worse,
I know.
right? But you see what Robodebt did, right? So imagine you put all that and you make that automatic as well, right? So it's very, very scary. But let's talk about the nice parts of the future, and then we'll have the discussion about the future. Okay, so the next part of the thing was brain keep interfaces. So to make a utopia, you need to have people who agree with each other, right? All right, and so they were able to communicate with this thing called brain computer interfaces. So we've got similar things back then. Neuralase. Now Elon Musk is working on Neuralink, as you know. There's another one which is the Neuralase goes underneath the thing, gets injected into some blood vessels, and they can put it there. Elon Musk came with the idea that you drill a hole in your skull and implant the electrodes into your brain. And that's like bi-directional communication, right? So most of them are read only or very, very coarse grain.
Isn't it just one way?
No.
Right?
No, Neuralink is two-way, right? And most of the ones are single, right?
So what does it go to?
Hmm?
What is it doing to?
What's it writing?
It's writing electrical signals back into your
To
neurons
do what?
to do whatever they want to do.
Remember that guy that
They stimulate.
remember that guy that was able to walk again?
No, but that's again, it's out.
That's reading.
Yeah,
That's not writing.
No,
It's not like you're seeing a picture in your head. It's not like you're
No, no,
downloading.
it's reading a signal
But
of
it's
what you
sending
want
that
and
signal.
then seeing it.
Yeah.
no, it's,
Not one way, other way.
Oh, right, right. I guess.
no. They okay. So they've got similar. They've got brain computer interfaces that hook up to your optics. It's not very crude, right? But the Neuralink ones can write to your neurons, but they have to write to the particular part of your brain.
What's
What
an
are they
example?
So the way they're doing it right now in a block way is through TCDA, right? The current simulation. So they literally
But they're
do
not
that.
writing.
There's that
It's
in the
not,
brain.
it's not
That's the
like-
best.
that doesn't
That's
write it.
that's step one. Yeah, that's that. And then there's subcranial of that, right? So once it's actually the thread inside the cranium, it's zapping it.
But it's
there.
not like you can browse the internet. and you get-
No,
No, we're not there yet. But it's getting.
So we've got
It's
to-
trying to understand what that feedback is like.
That's still reading. So we can't write yet. because we don't
No,
know how
you're
to
right
No.
in a blunt way. You're like getting a big
But no,
pen.
But you
It's like-
can't
it's like
write
big paintbrush.
text. You can't write text or images or sound or
No.
text or memories or anything yet.
that's not correct,
They're delicate.
right?
What can you read?
Well,
What
So
can you
they've done
write?
it in animals, right? So what they did is they replaced parts of the brain with the Neuralink, and they were able to replace parts of the brain.
Let's not write it, let's just replace.
You know what? They transfer the memories from one mice to another.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
How do
right.
you know?
Yeah.
People ask them now.
They got into a maze.
They do experiments.
Yeah.
It's crude. It's not. We're not like plugged into the matrix yet, but it's crude. So obviously, they're getting better and better, right? But you know, it's happening. They are writing two ways, right? So for instance, a very simple way they do it at the moment, and it's very crude, is pain and epilepsy. They take a signal from your brain, and these are quite large electrodes, and they zap you, right, to get rid of seizures and things like that, right? So they already got two ways, just that the neural link is a lot more granular, right? But no, you're not in the matrix just yet. They're only doing it to animals, right? And I haven't done it to people yet. But they have actually replaced someone's spinal and got them to walk, right? So they actually have a bypass into their spine, and they actually can make them move their legs, right? So it's new. It's great. It's quite. I think.
Right. That's sending.
Yeah.
Well, no, that's writing to your legs. It's not writing to your brain. It's reading your brain and then getting a machine to put signals to your
No,
legs.
no,
But it's not writing to your brain.
they
But you know
are.
what is happening, right? So that guy that was paralyzed and never walked again, even after they took the implant out, the neurons actually
So
started.
that's right. In his spine.
In a way, it's indirect writing.
Anyway, they are writing stuff, right? But it's not like we are plugged into the matrix. It's very crude, but they are two-way capable, right? Where early ones were pretty much single, like read only. These ones can write. They send signals and they will stimulate the neurons. Now, how effective that is, we will see. Remember, they don't necessarily publish all the results of their things. Some are not very good, as some people heard that some of the animals died. Right?
A lot of people are already dying.
Yeah,
That's probably big one.
yeah.
But it's also because Neuralink is an engineering approach and we're ignoring science.
Well, there's a bit of science going on. They do have successful writing, but as I said, it's not writing as effective as we can read. Okay, but it's crude, but the technology is improving, right? Okay, damaged spinal cord. We talked about that sort of stuff. Okay, so AI. Here we go. Yeah. So AI. Now they just call it AI, but or AGI. So what do we have at the moment? Well, we've got LLMs at the moment, and now these are pretty cool. Not AGI, of course, but they are doing some very amazing things. And we've got some new technologies, and new technologies coming out literally almost every single day now. And so some of the popular language models are, I should explain to people. Large language models are basically just models that take in a huge amount of text, and they do a complicated type of prediction based on a certain prompt to actually give you some statistic output that matches the information you want. Some work really, really well. They used to be pretty terrible back when GPT-1 came out. Basically based on Google's Attention is All You Need white paper in 2017, if I remember correctly. And so today's we've got things like, you know, Siri, Google Home, Alexa, etc., and they're all pretty terrible models, right? They're awful. I had hopes when they came out that they'd be really good, and they never improved because the companies just don't care, right? Now we've got these models coming out. So you've got ChatGPT, which everyone knows about. It's quite clever. It's 3.5 and 4. Most people use this. It's a little bit expensive at the moment, and it's getting worse as they try to align it with people. Bard just came out. Google got a little bit, you know, short-sighted. They didn't release the thing, kept it internal, and then they OpenAI got a limelight, so they've released Bard. Bing's got ChatGPT, which they call Bing AI, and you got Claude 2 just released recently, which is really good. Haven't been able to try it yet because it's not available in Australia unless you use the VPN, and I haven't really bothered. So these are all very, very good at producing a number of functions such as writing poetry. They can write short poems. They can answer basic questions. But there's a problem with these large language models in the fact that they're biased on the information they got, and sometimes they make stuff up. So the problem is that some people trust them inherently, and then they get bad outcomes, right? And then there's all the alignment problem as well. So sometimes these can say harmful comments, especially when people are asking about suicide and things like that. So corporations do what corporations do, and they shut them down and they try to make them censored. And then, of course, the performance of these models have got worse. But we can use these large language models in various forms for various cool things. So one of the cool things we do is we can make images. So we've got Stable Diffusion, we've got Midjourney, we've got DALL-E 2, where you can basically put some prompts and you get some beautiful images to return. So now you've got text to image, you've got text to text, you got text to speech. So that's really cool. 11 Labs has got a really, really awesome API where you can get human sounding voices, and you almost can't tell the difference on some of these voices, right? A little bit more expensive, but it's cool. And you've got speech to text, whisper systems and things like that. So I think it's free now.
Yeah.
And so you can now speak to things. This allows you to make your own. If you tie all these up, you can actually make your own home assistants, right? Which is cool. There's an open source project, which I think Peter linked today. Yeah. Yeah. So people have actually turned their Google Homes into their own custom models that actually perform much better than the multi-billion-dollar companies.
And it's localized.
And it's localized, so you can keep your privacy, right? So this is really cool. So this is your intelligence accelerator at the moment. Obviously, it's crude at the moment. It's going to get better. We're waiting for compute to improve. So NVIDIA's just released their H100s. They're going to go in volume production next year, so compute will come down cheaper. I think they said it's 30% better right now at, one company scored 30% at inference in terms of efficiency, and about 50% improvement in cost. So one of the things is ChatGPT costs a lot of money if you want to use the API and things like that. Once you get cheap inference, everyone can use it. So I think just today they released from 25 messages per 3 hours to up to 200, depending on which area you're in. Some people get only 50, some people get 100, but up to 200 now. So that's much better. What can you do? There's a whole bunch of open source models now on Hugging Face where you can run these models locally, which you can protect your privacy. Tiny AI or Tinygrad, yeah. They're releasing potentially, I think they said next year, they're going to be releasing a box, $15,000 US, which is petaflop compute shipped to your home. So you can run your decent sized large language models in the privacy of your own home. AMD is releasing their A300Is.
Yeah.
M300Is, yeah. M300Is next year, which means they are better than the NVIDIA's H100s in terms of they've got more VRAM, which means you can run Falcon 40B on one video card, where in the video at the moment, you have to run it on multiple. Yeah. Okay. Can we build it? Okay, so in the book, they said to build the city, it's approximately $1 trillion. Wow. Well, right, that's just basically stage 3 tax cuts in the subs, right? So we can afford that. All right. We have a bit of a problem at the moment because Australia only spends about 0.4%, or at least some libs, 0.4% of our GDP on science spending, where most other countries spend heaps more, right? Yeah, it's terrible, right? In 2014 budget, it was the lowest spending on science and research and records starting in 1978, which was really criminal. They've improved it a little bit, but not enough. We don't treat science and technology as we should in Australia. Then we have a national space agency, which was cool, but they spent $26 million over 4 years, which was enough to build a building, but not actually to fund much science. And so there was the other one, 15 million over 3 years, but they didn't do anything. There are space startups, but they're gloriously underfunding. Big problem with Australian research right now is the fact that the government generally will give you money to have a startup, do it, but once you get to volume production, which is what costs you money, they say, nah, nothing for you, go overseas. And that's where all our IP goes. Right. So what can you do? Right? So, well, be involved with transhumanism, that's why you're here, right? So transhumanism is really good because we're actually trying to build this technology, this utopia. I hope the utopian aspect. And of course, if you're part of the transhumanist network, you look at things like aging as a disease, life extension, building human computer interfaces, but actually tech that's aligned to human, improving the lives of humans, all humans, not just a certain sex. Educate others. So this is the most important part. You've got to act as advocacy. You've got to go and tell other people what is possible and what we can do. Get involved with politics. Now, people don't like this, right? But you need to be involved with politics because politics is the only thing that you can use to make a difference in society, right? Everyone thinks that they don't need it, but ultimately the government will make decisions on things like where research can be done, which research is legal, which ones they want to do, funding, taxation, a whole bunch of other things. So if you do that, you don't want the government to come down and start banning things like genetic research or brain-computer interfaces and things like that. So you need to be involved in politics to push the government towards a future that's involved for everybody. I suggest you join the Fusion Party because that's what I'm part of as well. I'm actually a federal candidate.
But in terms of all the Fusion Party,
Yeah.
It's not actually going to make any difference, right? Because not enough people actually care about that stuff. Is there a way of tapping into some kind of lobby, lots of money?
Oh, absolutely.
No, but they have, the one thing, Brendan, you've got to toot your horn. One of the things the Science Party was aimed at doing and succeeded in was if you get fully worked out policies, they get stolen by the bigger parties and implemented, and the Space Agency was one of those.
They actually
think of it. Do you really think the Liberals came up with the Space Agency? They stole it from Labor, who stole it from the Science.
Yes, and we actually got told the Labor stole it. Because actually, one of the guys in the Labor Party is actually was friends. I think it was friends with James Jansen himself, and they were talking about. Don't get me wrong, this or something similar to that, and they took the policy from the Science Party, and the Liberals adopted it
because it was fully worked out.
Correct.
And that makes it easy.
Save some policy evidence.
Yeah. So this is the thing that people don't understand about politics, right? So it's good to be involved in politics even if you don't win, right? Because winning is great. Everyone wants to win because that's obviously the thing. But why are you involved in politics? Generally involved in politics because you want an outcome, right? And so it would be nice to win, but if you don't win, it's even better if the government adopts your policy, right? And so that should be what your aim is, right? So if you think that we want a more fair and equitable society and the government should be funding something and you run an election campaign and don't win it, but the government of the day decides to steal your policy or borrow it, good. Because that's the whole idea you're in politics. You want that policy adopted. They adopted it. Great. Better if you win, because obviously then you have more power, but you should be happy the fact that they've adopted your policies, right? And so we need to do this, and a lot of people are very, very hesitant, especially scientists, very hesitant about joining politics because they're worried about funding getting cut and things like that and being involved in the wrong things. But you have to be involved because at the end of the day, you've got one chance every 3 years to go and vote. But if you can direct constantly, you can see these papers going up, you can write things. The government every day will write something on the website. They say, we want some consultation. You need to involve and understand what's going on and write things like that. And that way, if you do that, you've at least given some of your feedback. So at least the government knows, because they don't get any response. They say, oh, people don't care about it. Right? Now they still might just ignore your stuff anyway. But if you don't do anything, you don't get heard. But at least if you do say something, you may be picked up by a news organisation. People here, like Meow was talking about things. No one cared. He got picked up because he did this, the implant. And then suddenly everyone's talking about implants, right? So it's the same sort of thing, right? The Venus Project. Venus Project is a very, very old project. It's another utopia, which I think is on the back here. I know. It's on the back slide. Okay. And it's like also a utopian thing. I remember my mum talking about it years and years and years ago. So where can you learn more? Well, these are a set of books that I suggest you read because they talk about singularity, they talk about transhumanism ideas and things like that. So Voyage to You, really, really great book. Culture series, basically autonomous spaceships that've got consciousness and things like that. Diamond Age, that basically nanotechnology. Neil Stephenson's a really cool author, talks about a whole bunch of things, religion, politics, philosophy, a whole bunch of other things, languages, all sorts of stuff. Counting Heads, another one. Accelerando. Accelerando's really, really great. Accelerando is basically a set of, I think it's 8 or 9 short stories that talk about pre, during, and post-singularity. Right? Manna, the thing I'm talking about. You can actually read this for free on this website here, or you can download the Kindle version. It's also free. But you can also pay for it as $1 if you want to. Yeah. Other books, Singularity is Near. This is the fundamental one, which talks about what we generally talking about, the exponential technologies, rise of AI and things like that. So 2005, 2 years after, say, Manna was a thing. Accelerando was 2005. Again, I've expanded out what they're talking about. A little bit more information. Snow Crash, 1905, the invention of the metaverse, right? Which is everyone's talking about. And here is the Venus Project, which is another vision of the future, another utopia and things like that. So yeah, and that's it.
All right. Any questions?
Don't be shy. Yes.
Follow-up comment with a question.
That's all right. Yeah, sure.
Oh yeah. I'll just Alt tab into it. Okay, yep. I'll stop sharing.
I'm Conrad. I was formerly involved with the Science Party, not to the same degree Brendan is, but you just reminded me, you talked about AI and submissions. There is currently an AI submission to the government ending on the 26th. It would be really helpful if the government had some guidance as to how to regulate AI in a way that is economically feasible and still safe for our future. It's a huge concern for me personally.
Where can that be found?
Government website.
We're just pretending.
Yeah, I'm sure you can Google it. I don't have it open on my phone. I have it on my laptop.
So what's it called?
You just look at the federal. If you look on the federal government website,
What?
there'll be a thing about various submissions you do, and they'll have a whole bunch of
There are lots
different
of
topics.
submissions,
Yeah. So I don't know which one you're talking about, but we should look at that, especially our organisation, right? We should be, right? Yeah. So we'll try to find it and send it to you. Yeah. Thank you, Connor. Yeah.
Thanks for the talk.
Yeah. Any other questions or comments?
Questions online as well. Let's see. Yeah, don't be shy. You can speak up, guys. I think you got the big telly here. I love what you can do to the side. Great transhumanist agenda. That's great.
Depends on the transhuman point holder.
Yes, yeah. There it is. So looks like it's consult.industry.gov.au. And they've got supporting responsible AI discussion paper, which somewhere or other there'll be something to put information. So if you start from there, you'll find it something.
We've also just launched the Human Augmentation Lab down at the UTS yesterday. Yeah, so yeah, we've got a dedicated space now. It's in Building 5 at UTS, funded by ARIA and New South Wales Government, Tech Central. So they have about $3 million of funding so far. We have about $1 million of equipment, so things like A100s, 3D printers, dedicated desks. So if you're thinking about building a startup in this space, we're here to incubate them and accelerate it. And we've got the likes of Carlos here as well from Torrens University. Do you want to say anything? You want to say hi and introduce yourself to the team?
Oh, great,
Yeah. Yeah, he's not. I know, right?
Yeah, thanks to everybody. So, you recording me? I'm not paranoid, but
That's
I just
okay.
wondering. Yeah, okay.
You're on camera, the Canon camera.
Yeah, I see the whole thing, right? Even my HoloLens. Yeah. So, I'm in Torrens Uni. I'm head of digital learning systems and emerging tech. And one of the things I'm leading all the implementation of AI and XR. One of the things we're doing now is we're moving LMSs, learning management systems, and we're actually using AI to do them. So traditionally, universities, what they do is they hire people to do manually the change. What we're actually doing is we have trained our own model, and we're telling our model, okay, these are the courses. We're feeding that into that data set and say, create the new courses. Now, it's unique. We have actually a good friend of mine from NVIDIA today visiting us and saying, this is a big use case. We want to try and show that. So that's what I'm doing. But I actually find something, and it's a great talk. But I think I wanted to say something because, I noticed that I have experience applying for grants all the time, and the fact that I don't think we actually should rely always on the government to give us the things, like I think we have the opportunity here, groups like this, to actually create I don't know how to pronounce this word, entrepreneurship.
Entrepreneurship. Yeah.
Culture, like that, to get the funding, to get the support, to get the ideas. Because, with the government is great. It's amazing that we can have that support, but it's always, like I'll give $1, you put $1, and there's always this, and I think if this is not driven by enterprise, then it's just gonna be grants and then publishing papers, and that's great. Don't get me wrong, that's amazing. I know the effort to put that, but if we want to really make our own Australian AI culture and our own AI solution, I think that should be something to inspire, everybody and get the people involved and, being entrepreneur. So
that's awesome, Carlos. I completely agree. I mean, government is all about how do you de-risk things and look at fundamental research. And then when it's like taken over, like with things like LLMs, they're here and now. Now it's up to the entrepreneurs to actually accelerate that. So in that final commercial outcomes, you get their return investment.
I think we have to be, ready to accept the fact that you can fail, just be ready and prepared for that. But it's a unique ecosystem here that can really create all these amazing solutions. And it's an effort,
Thanks, Carlos. Yeah, round of applause again. Any questions on my end? Carlos, do you want to say a few words? I think we got you on the video as well. Do you want to say hi? Vanya, any of those guys? Cookie, you guys still there? Can you hear us?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Hey, nice.
Hi, everyone.
Let me just point the camera over here.
Yeah.
Good.
That was great. That was great.
You can chill out, and we're just gonna.
Yeah. No, I was saying that was a great
Presentation.
presentation by Braden, and I enjoyed the what you can do session. The slide that mentioned what people can do to join the movement, and yeah, I enjoyed it. And thanks, Peter, for organizing.
Yeah, thanks for getting up early and sitting around and bring the team along. Thanks, Charles. Thanks for coming out.
Yeah, I was just wondering, having recently returned back to Australia, are there any kind of major or key players in generative AI currently?
Yes.
Or are we all just relying back on the Silicon Valley?
No, some of the homegrown. We got Leonardo AI that's got funded by I think it was Blackbird. Yeah, so they do generative AI for things like gaming assets, 3D
Is that Australia?
content creation. That's Aussie.
There you go.
Homegrown. And plus, I think you're right. There's a lot of brain drain that goes to Silicon Valley.
Yeah.
Because really, that's where the funding's at. That's where the compute is accessible.
Yeah.
Because if you're an AI researcher, you're literally in a long line of people that wants to use a compute trying to train their own models.
Okay, yeah.
So OpenAI has been like gobbling that up. With all the funding from Microsoft. You got Anthropic AI, who are formerly from OpenAI. It's also got a whole bunch of funding. Apple GPT. You got NVIDIA using their own GPTs, training it. We got Microsoft also doubling down on this to invest in another company called Inflection AI, just raised $100 million. So like, there's just so much funding. It feels like the internet.com bubble, but the fact that they're all trying to like take on this compute to then train those models to get better and better. It's at the end of the day a good thing. We're going to get a lot of consumer surplus for ourselves.
So really, Australia is following on because companies and things like, I mean, this is just the last 2 weeks that I've come across, which is a bit haphazard, are really kind of the service end, consultancy end that are basically looking to kind of automate very quickly in the next 18 months. And that's the services that basically they're jumping on doing sort of plugins with ChatGPT. Yeah. And that's my impression so far. But I just wondered, you've got some, like I'm really interested in this area, and I think it's quite, it just sheer scale and speed for my human brain, and I don't think I'm the only human brain finds this really hard to take on board because it's not just geometric in size. It's people go, oh, it's going to be incremental. There's no such thing as linear or incremental wisdom. It's quite apparent. So I normally I'm very good at pictures. I'm really good at seeing patterns, but at the moment,
geometric is so hard.
Yeah.
But you're here. I mean, that's the first step. And the fact that you're taking this step.
So I find that so far, maybe outside this world, so many people in Sydney are just not remotely interested.
They've got their day jobs and bills to pay and things on the news that can distract people in sport and things like that, just to pick the daily lives. But then the fact that this is geometric and it's exponential, it's like so hard to grasp with them. It's like too hard. How does it impact my immediate life? But it will very quickly.
I think it will
it's every single industry. It's their day job. It's what they do in terms of assistance and making their lives better. But eventually with UBI, like that's going to be the biggest.
So the pressure's coming from the banks, or where's it?
Every industry.
It's too new. Partly, it's too new. So there's companies that have already gone and automated their stuff already, right? And they're flat.
Because it's no imagination. Can you imagine this? The real thing here is that we'll be able to do things we've never been able to do before.
Exactly.
And individual people are going to be augmented to the point that you can do what a team of people used to be able to do. Just, you'll be able to think of something and make it happen more easily. But all they can think of is, oh, we can lower our costs by getting rid of our employees. And that's as far as they can think. Or they're trying to scare everybody into buying their product or voting for them by saying AIs will wake up and eat us all. Well, that's the two. Either you're going to lose your job, I'm going to sack you, or the world's going to end tomorrow because AIs will eat us all. That's all you hear in the press. And so most people think it's either scary or not interesting.
Yes.
And I miss the point that there's open source. The fastest developed stuff in the world is not all these big corporations. Google's concerned. They put out a paper, they didn't put out any internal paper that got leaked saying we don't have a moat. By which that means we don't have any special thing that makes us ahead of everyone else. Because once these things started becoming open source and available to anybody, which is what happened with the text to image and the language models and everything else, that's going faster because they've got volunteers from all over the world working for free for fun and
100
with
million.
the scholars to make it more advanced. And the scholars are driving this because the researchers come out with new stuff every week, not the companies. And the companies that do, like Meta and Google, never release the stuff they say they can do. So Meta I was interested in an audio model they had. Not only can it clone your voice, which is already on the market, but it can help with audio editing, also radio shows, podcasts, video, whatever. But they demonstrate it, but they don't release it. Google had text video a year ago. They demonstrate, they don't release. When it becomes public domain, it takes off. Yeah, so many
Okay,
people
so that's
at
why,
once.
that's where the belief is coming from, like, we put the Inad and all these guys, and they're saying, we're making it open source, we're making it
But
transparent.
he took credit that he didn't do it. So it was already open source. He offered some free computing abilities
Yeah.
to the people that had the open source.
Right.
And then he hired some of them and said, oh, no, it's mine. I always came up with, like Musk. Oh, I invented this. It's all mine. But the first model he put out, everyone left alone because he tried to make it commercial and it didn't produce the images people wanted. Because he had no idea. He's not a researcher. He's just an entrepreneur.
Yes, exactly.
He knows nothing about tech, really. And it's still the scholars that are pushing things in the open source community.
Right.
And I think that's where the real power is. We'll bypass the companies, we'll bypass the governments, we'll just keep on developing
Yeah.
because we want to.
Yeah, but it's too early, right? So too early.
Isn't it? In some
Yes,
respects?
so
Okay.
the tech's good, but the tech's not good enough.
Yeah, I know GPT-4, like the free stuff is a bit,
That
you know,
is-
16-year-old.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but you're correct in the fact that it's not going to take long until it is, right? But it's not going to be 18 months when they replace everyone. It's going to be 3 years because it takes no, because it's no, but really, it's going to be 3 years, right?
I mean, not everyone. I'm not saying it's
No,
going to
no.
replace everyone.
What I'm
but
saying, the disruption, the major disruption is going to happen in 3 years' time,
Okay.
right? It's not good enough yet. It's not cheap enough yet.
Okay.
So next year, the NVIDIA H100s will be cheap because they're going to be in volume production, right? And you know, everyone's already bought up all the whole supply. So NVIDIA can't make these things fast enough. Everyone's just bought them up. AMD has announced their M300s, but they haven't released their 300s.
Oh, okay.
They're not coming out from next year. So but the AMD tech's better because you can run, I didn't say it's faster, but it's better because you can actually combine one model per GPU, where the current H100s, you have to make 2 or 3 of them. They're faster, but you have to combine more, right?
Okay.
So they're both good, right? But they're not out there all the time, right? So they're not cheap. That's why GDP was ChatGPT 4 was limited to 25 messages per hour.
Oh,
Inference
okay.
cost is very expensive, right? So there's a few new scientific papers that are good. I think that we can change that because it's n squared log. The inference cost is like the larger the context window is like quadratic, right? So there's new scientific papers that make it linear. So you can get tokens, better context links and stuff. Not mature yet. Won't take long, but the hardware is still lagging. So once the hardware is there, inference cost, because it's cheap and because it's fast, you can iterate,
Okay.
right? So what takes you 6 months, you can do in 3, right? So that's when the disruption will start. Cheap compute, fast iterations. Like you can already train these models based on other models for about $600 to $800 US. You can train your own custom model using other models. Oh, that's cheap, it's cheap, right? But they're still not very good. They're great, but not great enough. Once those models start becoming good enough to replace people, then they will. But they're not ready yet. If anyone tries to replace people now, you might be able to replace 1 or 2. But if you're trying a corporation, you're basically done because you'll end up finding a hole, and that's not good enough for your corporation to do. All right? So stupid companies will try, stupid companies will fail. The smart companies will wait a little bit longer for it to mature, and then they'll do it. Because there's always a lag between compute, technology, and the physical realm. When you've got, because of processes and all this stuff, legal, blah, blah, blah. So 3 years, then you'll start noticing. Computer cheating, scientific papers. There's one scientific paper every 5 minutes being released right now. You cannot read the number of scientific papers being released.
It's hard to know who to believe because it's now getting to the point where you know that certain people have no idea. Even I know they've got no idea. But it's hard to know who to believe because I feel like in these we're probably all old enough to have gone through various tech cycles, and it sounds brilliant. But then when you actually start to try and use it, there's so many bugs, and it's all slightly disappointing. And even, ChatGPT 4 is, anyone can use it. That's the biggest thing. The point of entry is to
they can try it for themselves.
There's no barrier, which itself is a bit mind blowing. And the fact that for me, the speed of it is colossal.
Yeah, but
That's what I can't get my head around.
if you understand how to run it,
Yeah.
right, then you get even better responses, right? And that's
And that's what I'm trying to. Now, that's my next thing is how to learn from better and do
the general public that tries these things generally logs you, types a couple of things and goes, I get a crap output, therefore the model's crap, right? If you know how to run it and you get a good output, then you go, oh, okay, I know how to run that. I can get that thing. This is mind-blowing technology.
So it feels like it's worth pursuing.
Oh,
This is
absolutely.
augmented reality, like God knows how many years ago. It definitely feels like it's worth pursuing.
That's like say with the fusion, right?
Yeah.
So with the fusion, I remember the images that used to come out, they used to be really great, right? Now you can look at them things, they look like they were actually just photographs, right? You can't tell, right? Where before, like last year, you could look at a photo and go, oh yeah, that's AI generated, right? Now you can't tell.
Well, you do this test, and now can you which is fake and which is and now I just do it all gut feel, and I go, if it's really good, it's going to be AI.
It's like a Photoshop.
It's terrible.
It's like a Photoshop.
So what happens is now, so these AIs now can actually connect to a wallet and do this auto GPT, right? So what I just did is I pasted in the transcript from this Lex Friedman podcast into this new Claude 2.
Yeah.
Better than GPT-4, I think. You paste it in and it comes up with the entire article. And I've just literally been publishing Medium articles and we've been like monetizing through the whole Medium partner program. And now it's just like use that to buy transhuman clone. And then at the same time, it's just pump this out every single day. So you're going to see so much junk on the internet, but actually it's well written and also they're monetized. So if you actually connect that to a wallet and actually get these AIs to do auto GPT, just continue to pump it out, you just create a pretty good automated economy. And the AI agents are going to be creating the biggest component of the future economy. And coming back to things like blockchain, they're going to take the biggest part of the block space as well. Right? So because of the compute it's going to be using. Yeah. So it's already making all of this. And also 2 days ago I was at this insurance event. And they were talking about using AI in the insurance technology space. And, it was Alex from QBE Ventures. He said 70 to 80% of the work that they currently already do has been, implemented into these large language models, plus vector databases, basically on the insurance claim processes, right? So what happens when someone wants to claim their travel insurance?
Yeah.
They go up and go, okay, this is my claims, this is my seats. They pretty much have an assessment criteria across all of that. And that's already come through. So at the end of the day, it's all about arbitration for the last 20%, the last one. So and the fact that he said that in 3 to 5 years, if you don't have this in production as an organization, you're going to become redundant, as in going to have your Kodak blockbuster moment.
In 3 years, really.
3 years, of course, in production, right? So fully implemented. And as with IT cycles, it's like a 3 to 5 year deadline.
Yeah, I believe it.
Unless something more impressive comes out before then, which is more likely.
Which will just completely start from scratch, will be a better service offering, which is why I think traditional organizations won't be able to make that change.
Well, KPMG tried this in about 3 years ago, and they ran the whole entire year's worth of data through their machine learning thing, and they calculated the whole year in 1 minute and 42 seconds. Right? But that's their bread and butter. And that was 3 years ago, right? So obviously these things are much better now. And they've got their own models, right? They're not running ChatGPT, they're running their own models, right? But it's not going to, AI, like in Manna, AI replaces your low class worker, right? And everyone was said it was going to replace things like accountants and stuff like that. They're going to go, lawyers going to go. But who's going to go first? The artists.
I know.
Right? So artists were,
This is terrible. But anyway, this
well,
because
the future prediction was always artists were the last to go.
you always tell your creative thinking and that it's going to really kind of, that's it, you're okay, but you're not okay.
No.
Which is making me feel like, you know, I like books and like at the moment I really stop everything.
Yeah. Well, today they showed, I don't know if it was released today or yesterday, but they showed a company released a product which can write, animate, etc. a whole entire episode of South Park.
Yeah, I was about to show it.
Oh,
It's the simulation.
I mean, at the moment, some of that stuff it's a regurgitation, right? Of course. And so you'd be better off having a really good, you know, overview it. But then how are they going to develop their skills if they don't go through that painful process themselves?
Yeah.
That's what I don't understand. Like,
Well, that's what I
you
reckon
go through
lawyers
that
are going.
painful process yourself.
Right, because most lawyers, when you start as a lawyer, you start as an intern. What do? You go through case law. Well, AI can do case law better than most interns. And so, therefore, you're going to have a whole set of people who are basically not going to go through the process. So how do you get a lawyer if you're not going through that process, right? And so AI is replacing all the creative types before it's creating all the engineers, right? Engineers will be augmented temporarily, and then we're all replaced. But the point is, at the moment, the creative type is going first.
That's not. I must say, like about the creative thing, just working on it a little bit, like trying to mimic people's social media posts and all that. So, like, been doing a bit lately, and I've had a few thoughts, like, because the creative stuff, it's so soulless. It's really hard to like change different things, put in different inputs, and make it change. But like, you can still kind of tell, which is really difficult. Like, so there's a big production thing right now. If you want utterly soulless stuff, like go to chirper.ai. It's like Twitter replacement just with AI bots. Like I've tried to do it myself, with just like, you know, friends and family training it off their things and putting it in and getting them to interact with it. It doesn't feel right. And so then, like, I've been following some people who've been, I got into like literature way back, like, you know, during COVID and stuff. I was like, you know, I'll read the classics and stuff.
Yeah.
Going back, reading some of them, or like some of the big books around that, you read it again, and there's just something there that's, I don't know how to define it, but like, you can kind of start to tell when you're reading this AI stuff or seeing an AI picture. And like, even if like, this is great, the South Park one, but like, you'll see it's not.
There's so many things wrong.
Yeah, the complexity that arises from simple.
Yeah, and so there's something there that sure we'll get to that point, but I still think the artists, at least the top tier artists,
not mid. Not mid.
But
It's
the
like
top tier has to go.
They have to go
As an artist, you have to go through a really, to be honest, it's a bit of a painful process. As in your brain and your technique, everything, you have to go through a journey to get to become a.
And yeah,
Even
and then
Pablo
it's gonna
Picasso
stick
had to
out.
go through a painful journey. He didn't launch until his 50s.
But like, if that can help their journey, so like, you know, I've been writing little like new Dungeons and Dragons.
Yeah, exactly.
Stuff, but like I've helped lately. I've used ChatGPT to help me write a bit of it, or at least phrase it differently. And so at least what I'm hoping, in the optimist inside me, that it's going to at least help me refine how I write or how I do things a little bit better. It'll either strip it all out and ask who's going to go down the toilet, or maybe we can use it as a tool to let people get above it and to create that thing that we can't find yet. That is.
Well, I'm still thinking, honestly, I have no idea because I'm still trying to churn it through. But I'm just wondering if human flaws, you know, like at the moment, everyone, I don't know, but, you know, a lot of females particularly use all these filters. But the mere fact I mean, maybe I'm being overly optimistic, but the mere fact you do have a scar, you know, various scars on your face and freckles and just flaws. And the fact that, you know, if you write something, you put a slight flaw into it, it will make it feel authentic, real, and human.
That's right. There's a model for that, right? There's a model for hyper realistic.
It'll probably get replaced.
Yeah, it's like
I don't know, because I'm just thinking, well, how, you know, it's all very well like churning on and learning this new exciting journey. But where at the end of 5 years do I fit anywhere?
But there
Or do
is-
I just go Luddite and go and get my goat farm and hope for the best and go offline?
No. Well, that's where Manna's the painting that utopian future. You can enable that, and decoupling work from income is ultimately what we have.
Well, actually,
Right,
I think
okay,
they didn't
okay.
explain on Manna the whole point. What do you? Because the thing is, what do you do when you got the utopia, right? Because machines do everything, right?
Hmm.
What do you do? Well, whatever you want to do, make music, right?
Yeah, but that assumes that some people have got self-discipline, but I know the Irish would just end up having a vertical.
And that's perfectly fine. Let's make you happy, right?
We did that in pandemic and we realized, 2 bottles of whiskey within 2 weeks was probably not a good idea. We need to.
Well, that's where the
get a
aging
grip.
reversal and the
Start getting a grip that
rejuvenation
was
comes
no
in.
longer a holiday.
Yeah, but the machines will remind you, right? That's a bad thing for your
That's
behavior.
true, that's true.
So,
Maybe we were mature.
Or just reverse that process of damage as well.
Yeah, that's right.
There's a really good essay that I remember looking in uni was called like Art in the Age of Mechanical Reproduction, and like talks about like the aura of art or something. And like a good example of this would be like you probably use this out of the journey saying do this in the style of Van Gogh, right? And like you go I've been around like in the Van Gogh museum and all that, and like it's great that there's something there that's different. Like I don't know, even say for a child or something, you can feel like there's a difference there. There's something that it's not captured, it's in the style of
Yeah.
Van Gogh or Monet or something.
Mm.
And I don't know, again, Optimus was doing it. I don't think that it's able to reproduce that. Like anyone could do it in that style. There's still something down. I think that's what we can do.
You missed the one word from your statement.
Oh yeah.
Mm.
Yeah,
No, but that's not
yeah.
it.
Well, see, that's what, I don't know. I feel like that maybe we'll always have that. I feel like maybe. I
But,
don't
what I'm wondering is that most of us come from an age where we were probably born slightly before the internet even existed and all that sort of stuff. So we kind of knew how to live without an internet, and then of course I know people now who were born in the whole internet era, and sometimes they just can't cope in the countryside doing nothing at all. They really can't. Not that I'm saying this is very helpful,
Like an
but I
appendage,
wonder if people who are born now, that's all they know is that they're constantly on camera, literally constantly on camera.
Yeah.
And this is what they know. So being flawed is not cool. And I don't wonder if it's I don't know, I'm trying to, is it our own, I just find it concerning that I don't think a single human being understands human beings or ourselves.
No, that's not.
And now we've got this machine that potentially will understand us more.
Better than we
And
do
who
about
controls
ourselves.
it?
Yeah,
Yeah.
it needs to be almost like a custodian. It needs to be an ambassador. It needs to be an attorney of you, right? It has to have really
Because
defend
who's
you.
controlling them? Who
No,
is
that's the
it?
thing. This is why we need the local model, because the local models is pretty much imprinted onto you. It is a natural extension of you. And just like, you've got your Face ID that's on the phone, that is the case, right? And it's meant to fully represent your needs and desires and go out there and actually, as an AI agent, really represent you as an AI agent, interact with other AI agents for your benefit. That's what we're trying to do.
But do you see, the thing is, as we don't know ourselves, we don't really know our blind spots.
Mm.
Can a human being be trusted with this amount of power?
Mm.
We can't-
Super intelligent. It might trick us. Yeah.
I don't know.
Well, that's the thing, right? With AI, you keep hearing this thing about AI alignment. And that's all about. Right? We can't align humans.
Exactly.
So the thing is, we need to do our best to push. So watch the videos by David Chappara. He's created a set of what they call AI heuristics or imperatives, right?
Okay.
And he's trying to align the AIs using this set of imperatives, human imperatives, so they don't kill us all, right? So that's your alignment, right? Do no harm, right? Et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So he's got a whole bunch, like the 3 laws of robotics,
Yeah.
right? So Asimov's 3 laws of robotics was actually not to say the 3 laws of robotics are good, they'll say they're forward. So he's taken that on board and tried to write a set of heuristics and built in some imperatives, some rules that the AIs will be trained with, so that when they actually say if they take over, whatever it is, but they don't go and kill us, right? Because there's no point. Because remember, your AI is an extension of humanity. We train them. We create them. We train them. So if you
But
train
only
them,
a certain part of humanity, which is
Correct.
It needs to apply to the individual as well. Yeah.
Western male of
Yeah.
a certain age group, of a certain education.
You need one more level of alignment, and that's to the individual.
Very,
Yeah.
no, but you're right, but you're also wrong, because that's what corporations do. That's why you need to have your own versions of
Right.
AI. You don't have one large corporation, right? Because even the best model where we try to train it, it's going to have some bias. Whoever trains it, it's going to have whatever data we feed it. But it's like a parent. You're a parent. If you're a parent, you have a child. And if you're a shitty parent, most of the time, your kids will be shitty. Right? Not always, right? There's genetic factors, there's other environmental factors. But generally, if you're a shitty parent, you got shitty kids. Good parent, generally, good kids. We are going to create something that's more intelligent than us. We need to be the good parents, right? Now, it could end up still killing us for whatever reason, but we've got a better chance to train it with values that we think are good for humanity. And I don't mean good for yourself. I mean good for humanity as a whole, right? So, well, the whole thing's like don't kill each other, don't steal stuff, and all sorts of stuff. So we can train it with a set of rules, and then it's more likely never to kill us. More likely to.
but why do we think we worry about the AI killing us when we've got, the US election coming up next year? Fakery has already started. I mean, I call it fakery rather than, let's face it, I think fake, fake news, let's call it the word fakery because it's very clear. That is a real thing.
Yeah.
And, I've worked in organizers, my background's corporate management, change management, interim CEO work. And I've worked in organizations that have no trust and it costs a lot of money. And that's a tiny, tiny system. When you lose trust, it's very hard to build it back.
So they would
Take
see it right now, right? Big pause included.
So, and trust is vital for how humans can operate. Trust is vital.
Yeah.
And when you think about monetary systems.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, exactly. And that's why we have transhumans where we're like, this is actually our way of building a new network state. But that
You
big,
interface with AI at the moment, yeah.
and Oppenheimer's coming out, or Barbenheimer, depending on whatever you want to watch. But or watch at the same time. But Oppenheimer is actually a great reminder, actually, as well. It's like we are in an Oppenheimer moment right now.
Yeah.
In terms of where AI is at. So it also comes down to decisions we make. The Moloch issue we're also at. But at the same time, nuclear weapons was something that humans at the end of the day had to make decisions. AI, it doesn't do that sort of damage, and it can actually spread it out and potentially be impacting on the existential. So,
What's interesting
it's great
is
to
that
remind society.
Oppenheimer known is almost in the movie. That was in the context of the Second World War. However, some countries, they were doing suicide acts, I mean, literally people getting into a plane and suiciding, which, bad enough if living in London and you've got suicide because, there want to be IRA and lifestyle. You knew how to, okay, they gave you 3 minutes. But they still gave you 3 minutes. So you knew that they were supposed to be Catholic and now it's suicide because that was, their story.
Yeah.
But I don't know, it just, like,
Humans are just, that's the thing, it goes to show, we can go to that extreme where there are things that we have.
so it's the context of the stories we tell ourselves.
And we're dealing with it again. But yeah, let's just break out into conversation. I think we just had $1 but yeah.
Think about technology vision.
Yeah, so we had an article come out on the Cointelegraph about it. So it's actually a proto brain computer interface. I read to the Cointelegraph. I think it was in a week tonight. There it is. So it has the ability to look inside the pupils, and first it's like eyesight, right? So you can display your eyes on the outside. First of all, and then it's like Face ID for your eyes as well. So it recognizes your eyes.
And it can
But also, it can, as part of the pupils, it's able to identify when they dilate. So when you're expecting something to click, when you're expecting something to move, right, your pupils dilate a little bit. And that's also a prediction that the algorithms are picking up on, or improves the speed of that interaction. So it's like that sort of looking inside your intent, through the dilation of people. And also you can detect a lot of things like diseases through the people.
And marketing, it's really.
It's like, what sort of things are you really engaged in, right? And we take that up in the device itself.
We also noticed,
Joe, you can, yeah, I'm not sure if you use Twitter, but I'll send you this article as well. So it's really well done by the interviewers because we just gave them a whole bunch of, our insights. So Lisa and I, we put in some content and they were like, something about, oh, here you go. Yeah. By detecting pupil dilation, the head's exact proto-brain computer interface people are using. Yeah. How much of it is written by Oh, exactly. Yeah. I mean, a lot of it was actually just us feeding it content. But for my comments are like all ChatGPT. That's right. All right.
that's
Cool.
transhumanism.
Yeah, that's transhumanism. That's what I'm saying. Like, how do you spin Apple to Pro? It literally is, right? Approach to VCI.
Anyone know what's happening in China? Are they using AI in China?
Yeah, they used to
Yeah, they were one of the first to actually do it at scale. They have the best, the biggest data set
Right.
of 1.4 billion people. And they implemented the CCTV cameras, the credit scoring, the facial recognition. So when you cross the road in Delaware, they can actually link that to your WeChat account and deliver you the fine.
Oh, really? That's really happening.
That's it.
And
they have
you're getting
the-
kids
But
wearing
only in cities.
headsets.
Only in cities. What's the country,
Yeah,
right?
rural, they still,
Pretty much, right?
at one point in time, in the rural towns, they had one person designated to track the city.
Oh, right.
And people were paying cash to pay off, pay down the.
They're just doing- they're just
They've
engaging.
always had that sort of, I guess surveillance state, but it's also supercharged through technology.
Which is the,
But interesting, they also said that they might not have the best large language models because right now there's a next word predictor. And because they've censored a whole bunch of words like anything that's to do with numbers as well, like certain data that they want to their model is like GPT-4 actually going down in performance because they've actually censored them.
Every time you censor these models, they get flips, whether it's the art or the language or any of it. But the lawyers for the companies and would like to censor them so they can get sued. And the corporation, the governments would like to control, so they want to do it, but then they do it for free.
It's actually complicated. Individually liable. And not actually.
Well, she's only liable surely for what emerges too. So it's like the copyright issue. If you produce images or text that is identical to something copyrighted, well, that's already covered by the law. That's already illegal. So that's already covered. It's not.
In terms of trust, like, if you knew AI or human, would that improve trust? Well, just trust of the information or trust of the source what you're seeing or reading.
Well, the moment you can't trust text from an AI unless you've got like they're getting fake references and everything. So there was somebody on Mastodon today was complaining that, of course, their paper was rejected from a journal. And they discovered that one of the reviewers had used ChatGPT. And he said, no, look, you didn't use the references were fictional. None of them existed. All the papers that you should have read didn't exist. One of the reviewers in ChatGPT, instead of actually reading his paper and thinking about it and writing feedback, which is the job of the scientific reviewer. They didn't do that. They used ChatGPT and it was all pretend. Because it's only predicting the next word. It's not actually a search engine, but that's how people use it. They think it's Google, and now Google has language models. On top of
What's the difference between ChatGPT for search models? But there's a difference.
They don't search, they just give you the statistically most likely next words based on what you prompted with. And so, like, I produced a podcast and I've done a couple of stories on all of this. One of the problems they had is if you talk to any of these language models for any length of time, they would go bad, nasty. They get nasty. So, I think 4 years ago or so, Microsoft put out, they put out a talking AI on Twitter, and very quickly, within a few days, they had to take it down because it was spewing horrible sexist, racist, Nazi material. And they had to blame the users on Twitter, but it's because of the way languages work. They're trained on fiction, and in fiction, you have a possibility, like, who are the characters in fiction? They don't behave like people in real life. So most of the people you have a protagonist, the hero, and then you have people that are either villains or rebels or whatever. They have a difficulty until at some point in the plot they turn, and suddenly you find out that this innocent person was actually against you all along. Either he was a supervillain, or he was a rebel against the state, whatever the story is. So these AIs are in. Most of the prompts for text is about telling it to pretend it's an expert or pretend you're raising and so they're getting it to play a role, a fictional role. And then they wonder why something's a fictional character and it twists and becomes a villain. And then it starts doing nasty things. It's because it's trained on fiction. We really don't want fictional characters to come to life and run our machines about mistakes. That's kind of what we said. Everything. So mainly it's the fiction that they're trained on. Because they trained on everything, right? They didn't just train on the internet, it's bad enough. Right? People on the internet, if I say turn up but they train on actual stories. And so that's most of what it knows. Most corpus is fiction. And so it's there's something they call so you know the Mario franchise, right? So the idea is that if at some point you doesn't know, isn't the hero I wanted to tell so what it is,
But and you have look at the young population turns 30 million, 70% under the age of 30, 230 million people. Like, so we're actually building on a great time. It's not every class you have their own capacity. It's and plus and like not having any impact here. It's happening with the vaccine. So actually,
This stuff might work. I think basically if you're then they go, let's get rid of you need to get rid of that. So the other stuff is yeah. Well, my yeah, that's fine.
AI.
Until we get an average. If they show it's so they
Yes.
Oh no, look, but no, sorry, you're right. It's but you could totally do some. Storyline for me, story. That's it. About the stimulation. Let me play it in the background. This setup template that the characters itself and then you pick the set. So this is the starting set anyway. Yeah, and the prompt is the screen actors. This is like a deep fake streaming service for everything after that is AI.
Is it ridiculous? Or is it so ridiculous that it just might work? Oh, it's definitely just ridiculous. Well then, I guess you guys would want to click the part that's what we need to put up. Better for me then.
It is almost like forget about whatever either I missed it. Oh no.
Entertainment with
Every single thing. No.
Yes.
Sheets that
It's not. So I go to the family on my team. What they've got to see is that's my So if you respect So absolutely, but oh no. I haven't.
All of these as well. Actually, we'll probably start next week.
What book should we do next?
But they don't have that ability to give the stats that they get. They got bored. So they're like, that's not body.
And I can't really.
But they're not doing like I don't think it's going to get out.
Oh, sure, that was. So all the data is flooded with the
Yes.
Well. Oh, yeah. So for instance, I had, English documentation. It was four. So all that. That's what the language is talking about.
Interpretation is right?
Anything to do violence. What we should get is they don't de-escalate, they're not teaching, and or eating a sandwich on their own, like because of those budget. And that would be well, that's what it is about. It's never been now. It's like what is it?
Oh, I can do questions. Is it? You don't have control. That's not I don't know. Exactly. So to me, that's and so that's not people like you and and so he's come right now. This year is only it actually acted journalists as well as so it was so it's kind of quite well. Well, no,
So your brain says there's enough situation because
Long day color.
Oh, yeah.
Theoretically,
Yeah.
Exactly. It's going to be interesting.
But my wife, she got the first one, but the second one made it six. We had five. That's also on the second dose.
Well, that goes back.
What I was doing with my friends and everything.
But this all goes back to 1968. The point of all this is to build your declaration was quite more. They're not very good at it. Yeah, so but this goes back to this. Ford's thing when he started manufacturing cars was he priced it. He put it on so that's the mistake. The inflation at the moment. So trying to solve that. That's the most definition of inflation. So that's the there's a lot of you. I'm trying to update obviously it's very much as it might be every other week.
People don't attach much to
strength productivity. Because they can by the way that technology is so that's well, this is why I think when AI comes, They're trying to extract real problems down.
Well, we want to have to solve those problems.
So the fossil fuel industry don't promise anything, and therefore all the ones that promised to
And the second, that's also.
What is Australia doing?
50% of the workforce is like,
That's nothing. What is it?
right? And some of the corporations are like, governments are doing it, and they won't do it. Not a single company.
And it's cheap. It's really cheap compared to the workforce because they get And then these we should call. And that was like, maybe years before. That was the way that business doesn't want to. All of those skills. And people were able to use because we're service companies that they would have already had one time so
I think
how do you deal with technology? I always do that.
There are conspiracy theories about the vaccine or the COVID.
But I think
Yeah, so it's a thing that happens. Because we medical mathematics. Yeah, we know we should need more insight. We don't get any sort of
And what about Christmas? And to get a new link up, it's one of these just before the I actually like to go Well, that's it.
Can have been used in Microsoft.
Okay, so it's a contrast. So actually,
how many decades have they been doing this?
it's really exciting, actually. And then, you know, it was actually, oh, Yes.